For centuries, humanity had been observed from the shadows of the galaxy, a curious and seemingly inconsequential species tucked away on a small, blue world at the edge of known space, and the galactic powers that held sway over countless star systems dismissed them as primitive, unremarkable, and irrelevant, trading whispered conjectures over crystalline communication networks about how amusing it was that humans still struggled to leave their own system while claiming dominion over a world that barely influenced interstellar politics, yet the humans, aware of the surveillance and the subtle manipulations of alien spies and scouts, had retreated deliberately into what appeared to be a pacifist dormancy, refraining from expansion, limiting contact, and masking the exponential advances they had quietly achieved in technology, bioengineering, energy manipulation, and artificial intelligence, all while cultivating alliances with isolated and overlooked species who had suffered under the heavier hand of galactic overlords, their quiet years filled with research, strategy, and preparation, until the first overt sign of arrogance by the galaxy came in the form of the HFY Confederation, a species of towering, insectoid warriors who had grown used to being feared rather than opposed, sending a fleet of observation cruisers toward the Sol system under the pretext of trade and diplomacy, but with a hidden agenda of testing the humans' defenses and assessing the vulnerability of their homeworld's orbital network, only to encounter the first shock of their lives when human orbital defense arrays, long hidden behind the guise of conventional satellites, activated with precision, cutting down the lightly armed HFY vessels with a combination of electromagnetic rail cannons and adaptive missile swarms that moved with a coordination the Confederation had not anticipated. And as the surviving scouts scrambled to report back, humanity's fleets emerged. From hidden depots across the asteroid belt in Jovian orbit, sleek ships designed for both speed and overwhelming firepower, captained by officers who had trained for decades in simulations that accounted for every known alien tactic, striking with strategic patience rather than brute force, disabling weapons and navigation systems before ever allowing boarding actions. And yet the humans did not obliterate the HFY entirely, instead demonstrating their capacity for restraint, signaling to the galaxy that the species they had so thoroughly underestimated possessed not just the power to dominate, but the intelligence to choose the moments in which it would act, a revelation that sent ripples through interstellar politics, with councils and empires recalculating the risk of humanity as whispers of their hidden achievements leaked through defectors and intercepted communications. From colonies once thought insignificant now revealed as production hubs of advanced spacecraft and energy weapons, to scientists and engineers who had cracked faster-than-light energy propagation in ways that made older galactic technology seem crude, all while maintaining the facade of ordinary, everyday civilization on Earth to lull the galaxy into underestimation. And as the news of human capability spread, rival empires debated alliances, betrayals, and preemptive strikes, unaware that every observation of humanity had been catalogued, every tactical weakness predicted, and every countermeasure developed long before the first HFY fleet had dared to approach. For the humans had not acted out of anger or ambition, but out of a carefully calculated decision to protect not only their homeworld, but also the smaller species that had suffered under galactic tyranny, revealing that the quiet patience of humanity was not weakness but strategy. And as the first wave of interstellar conflict concluded with the HFY forced into a retreat they had never imagined possible, whispers began to circulate through the corridors of alien power that the era of treating humanity as irrelevant was over, and the galaxy had no choice but to recognize that a species long underestimated had finally chosen to act, and in that decision lay the unspoken warning that from now on, no empire, council, or confederation could presume to ignore the humans without risking consequences of a scale previously unimagined. The aftermath of humanity's first decisive engagement with the HFY reverberated across the galaxy as intelligence networks scrambled to verify the reports, and in the chambers of the Galactic Council, composed of representatives from the most powerful and ancient species, discussions turned from curiosity to alarm, with elder delegates struggling to comprehend how a species so long dismissed could deploy technology and tactics that not only counter but outmatched centuries of galactic military doctrine, while the humans, operating from their hidden orbital command stations and subterranean research hubs on Earth, calculated every potential political and military response, using drones and data streams to monitor council debates in real time, their communications indistinguishable from ordinary broadcasts, and the aliens, growing increasingly anxious, underestimated the psychological dimension of humanity's strategy, for humans did not strike out of malice but demonstrated an almost clinical restraint that left rivals uncertain how to react, with messages sent to subordinate fleets detailing defensive postures being ignored, fleets waiting for orders while human emissaries simultaneously contacted minor colonies and outlying systems offering protection and technological aid, creating a network of influence that bypassed traditional power hierarchies. And the more the Council attempted to probe humanity's capabilities through diplomatic missions, the clearer it became that humans had not only anticipated these overtures but had already set contingencies in place, with autonomous ships intercepting reconnaissance probes, AI-driven simulations predicting Council strategies, and carefully cultivated alliances with species long suppressed by the dominant powers, resulting in a web of subtle control that left the great empires uneasy. Realizing too late that their arrogance in assuming humans would be reactive rather than proactive had been a monumental error. While back on Earth, scientists and strategists worked in tandem to reverse engineer alien technology acquired from prior observation missions, incorporating it into human designs without revealing the extent of what had been learned. And as the humans revealed a fraction of their newly developed warships in a show of tactical precision, entire fleets of elder species found themselves outmaneuvered in the void of space, forced to reconsider doctrines that had governed interstellar warfare for millennia. And amid all this, human diplomats, engineers, and military officers coordinated with a calm determination, issuing carefully worded communiques warning of retaliation only if aggression continued, a restraint that puzzled and frustrated alien leaders who were accustomed to decisive displays of dominance rather than controlled, patient escalation. And as rumors spread that humanity had developed faster-than-light communication relays, adaptive energy shields, and weapon systems capable of manipulating gravitational fields, fear began to seep into even the most confident quarters, with some species quietly negotiating protective treaties with humans, desperate to avoid being collateral in a conflict whose magnitude they could no longer fully comprehend. And through it all, humanity maintained a veneer of normalcy, keeping planetary life functioning, trade routes operational, and internal governance stable, demonstrating sophistication in balancing interstellar conflict with domestic continuity that the galaxy had never encountered. And as council meetings devolved into panic and accusations, the humans quietly consolidated power, their calculated patience and precise interventions revealing an entirely new paradigm in which the underestimated species not only survived but dictated the terms of engagement, sending a clear, undeniable message. The galaxy had feared humanity for nothing, but now that humanity had decided to act, every empire, every fleet, every council will be forced to confront the consequences of their centuries of misjudgment, and the unfolding war would not be a matter of conquest alone, but a demonstration of human ingenuity, restraint, and an unshakable resolve that would forever redefine the balance of power among the stars. As the Letharii retreated and rumors of human capabilities spread like wildfire through the outer systems, new factions of the galaxy's dominant species began to reassess their assumptions, with the Velori Syndicate, a council of serpentine diplomats and traders, sending fleets cloaked in diplomatic insignia toward human-controlled space to test for weaknesses, only to encounter an array of defenses that seemed almost anticipatory, human engineers having predicted attack vectors, logistical choke points, and even the most subtle forms of subterfuge, while Earth scientists monitored gravitational anomalies and energy fluxes in real time, adjusting orbital arrays and deploying defensive satellites with algorithmic precision. And simultaneously, humanity's emissaries traveled to border colonies and fringe systems, offering aid and protection to oppressed populations, their presence acting both as a shield and a subtle recruitment of allies who had long suffered under the heavy hand of the galactic elite. And as the Syndicate's envoys were politely but firmly rebuffed, they realized the humans were not acting impulsively or with blind aggression but with long-term strategy, their every move calculated to maximize influence and minimize unnecessary confrontation. While behind the scenes, human fleets moved with coordination that rivaled anything the galaxy had ever seen, integrating captured alien technologies into adaptive formations, testing psychological pressure tactics on enemy fleets, and exploiting every environmental advantage in asteroid fields, gas giants, and orbital corridors, forcing the galaxy's militaries into a reactive posture for the first time in eons. And yet, humanity's restraint remained a key component, with commands issued to disable rather than destroy, subvert rather than annihilate, leaving rivals bewildered, unsure whether they faced mercy or the calm before a storm. And as intelligence reports circulated back to the Galactic Council, panic grew over the speed at which humanity's influence expanded, with minor species publicly aligning themselves with human protection initiatives, creating a network of loyalty that could not be easily dismantled without provoking severe consequences, while council debates erupted into accusations and blame. Each species scrambling to assert control over decisions they now realize were already anticipated by human strategists, and as the first covert strikes against rogue fleets and insurgent stations demonstrated human ability to project power with surgical precision, whispers began to circulate of technologies that blurred the line between offense and defense, energy manipulation that could nullify entire weapon systems, AI-driven strategy capable of predicting enemy behavior, and spacecraft capable of adapting to hostile environments in ways previously thought impossible, leaving the galaxy stunned at the disparity between perception and reality. And through it all, humans maintained an appearance of calm normalcy, continuing scientific exploration, maintaining trade, and engaging in cultural exchanges, creating an image of a species advancing both socially and militarily in harmony, a stark contrast to the disjointed and panicked responses of the galactic powers. And as rumors of humanity's ability to rapidly construct and deploy fleet units, harness exotic energy sources, and coordinate multi-system operations spread, even the most confident empires began to hesitate before issuing commands, realizing that every move against humans could trigger a response they could not predict. And as alliances shifted, minor species gained confidence, protected by human oversight, while the major powers discovered that centuries of underestimating humanity had left them exposed to a new reality in which a patient, disciplined, and strategically brilliant species had finally chosen to assert itself, not recklessly, but with precision that ensured their dominance would be both undeniable and irrevocable. And the galaxy began to understand that the age of dismissing humans was over, that their restraint had been a misread of patience, and that the humans who had once been laughed at for their supposed weakness were now quietly dictating the terms of engagement in a way that would reshape interstellar politics, warfare, and diplomacy for generations to come. As the galaxy's major powers struggled to adapt to humanity's methodical rise, tensions escalated into open confrontations on the fringes of human-influenced space, with fleets long confident in their superiority suddenly finding themselves outmaneuvered by humans who had anticipated every tactical formation, while Earth's command centers coordinated multi-system operations with unmatched precision, deploying decoys, adaptive shields, and rapid response units that neutralized threat before they could fully materialize. And yet the humans continued to exercise restraint, targeting weapons and control systems rather than annihilating entire populations, sending a clear message that their power was not mindless aggression but deliberate, calculated enforcement. And as news of these engagements spread, smaller civilizations previously crushed under the boot of imperial dominance began openly pledging loyalty to human protection, establishing supply routes, satellite networks, and intelligence hubs that further strengthened humanity's position without the need for conquest. While in the Galactic Council, debates grew increasingly frantic, with elder species accusing one another of failing to predict human capabilities, fearing that any misstep could provoke retaliation far beyond previous expectations. And as rogue factions attempted preemptive strikes on key human-aligned systems, they were systematically dismantled by combined human and allied forces, fleets operating with a synchronization that made individual ships seem like extensions of a single mind, their actions guided by predictive algorithms, centuries of strategic simulation, and a deep understanding of alien psychology. And yet, despite overwhelming superiority, humans preserved the life and infrastructure of targeted systems, using precision strikes to disable armaments and transportation networks, demonstrating an ethical and calculated approach that only intensified the alien perception of humans as both terrifying and inscrutable, while Earth-based scientists continue to refine propulsion technologies, weapon systems, and AI-driven command protocols, incorporating lessons from each encounter to further enhance humanity's strategic edge. And as more alien species began to seek alliances or protection agreements, human influence expanded not through war but through a combination of deterrence, diplomacy, and demonstration of capability, leaving major empires scrambling to counterbalance a force they had long dismissed. And as human-led fleets engaged with the Velori Syndicate, intercepting supply convoys and disabling command nodes with unprecedented efficiency. Whispers of humanity's mastery of space-time energy manipulation began to circulate, fueling paranoia among rival species who now realized that underestimation had been catastrophic. And as the first Council-sanctioned counteroffensives failed spectacularly against human strategic patience and adaptability, the galaxy slowly came to understand that humans had mastered the delicate balance of aggression and restraint, projection of power and preservation of life, and that their rise was not a fleeting threat but a permanent shift in interstellar power dynamics, a revelation that caused both fear and grudging respect, with even the most arrogant species now carefully measuring every word, every maneuver, and every alliance against the quiet certainty that humanity's patience and planning had created a position from which they could dictate the terms of engagement for decades to come, ensuring that the age of ignoring humans was irrevocably over, and the galaxy would have to navigate this new reality where the once dismissed species now held not only technological superiority but strategic genius, moral authority, and a network of influence capable of reshaping the balance of power in every system, forcing even centuries-old empires to reconsider how they had treated humanity. And as the humans continued to expand their protective reach, striking only when necessary and always with precision, the galaxy slowly recognized that the humans had not acted recklessly but with a vision that extended far beyond the immediate conflict, securing their place as a dominant species not by conquest alone but by demonstrating that patience, intellect, and moral resolve could achieve what sheer force never could. With smaller factions now firmly under human protection and influence, humanity turned its focus toward the galaxy's most powerful empires, whose arrogance and overconfidence had led them to assume that humans would remain a peripheral curiosity rather than an active force reshaping interstellar politics. And as massive fleets of the Dravari combined, a militaristic species that had dominated multiple sectors for centuries, advanced toward human-aligned territories with the intention of crushing what they viewed as a minor nuisance. They were met not with blind fury but with calculated opposition, human strategists having analyzed every possible vector, supply line, and fleet configuration, deploying fleets in unpredictable patterns that forced the Dravari into defensive positions, while AI-driven reconnaissance continuously monitored enemy movements, adapting human tactics in real time. And Earth-based command centers coordinated orbital defenses, mobile strike units, and clandestine sabotage operations with an efficiency that made the galaxy's most seasoned commanders question the very nature of human foresight. Yet despite overwhelming strategic and technological superiority, humans refrained from annihilation, instead employing precision attacks that incapacitated key warships, severed supply chains, and neutralized command nodes, leaving the Dravari leadership scrambling to regain control, while their troops began to comprehend the breadth of human ingenuity. And as word of these engagements spread, other major empires such as the Jakari Dominion and the Kylerian Conclave attempted to capitalize on perceived human vulnerabilities, only to discover that humans had anticipated multi-front threats for decades, with defensive networks, decoy fleets, and hyper-advanced communication arrays allowing humans to coordinate responses across light years without alerting enemy sensors. And as the first large-scale space battles erupted, human fleets executed maneuvers that seemed almost prescient, striking at weak points with surgical precision, using adaptive energy shields, gravitic manipulation, and electromagnetic pulses to disable enemy ships without loss of civilian infrastructure, while simultaneously rescuing enslaved or oppressed alien populations, further extending their network of influence and loyalty. And the galaxy watched in awe and fear as humans demonstrated the rare combination of overwhelming force, strategic brilliance, and moral clarity, forcing major empires to reconsider centuries of doctrine that had relied on intimidation and brute power, while council debates devolved into chaos, with species accusing one another of gross misjudgment and demanding immediate action, unaware that humans had already prepared contingencies for every potential scenario. And as the Dravari tried to regroup and the Jakari attempted flanking maneuvers, they found themselves ensnared in adaptive battle formations that countered their every strategy, while humanity's diplomats and engineers simultaneously reinforced allied colonies, improved infrastructure, and ensured supply chains of both humans and protected species remained uninterrupted, demonstrating a level of logistical mastery that left even veteran commanders stunned. And as more alien fleets attempted desperate raids, they were neutralized or rerouted through methods that preserved life while exposing tactical incompetence, a pattern that caused a paradigm shift in how galactic powers perceived human capability. For the realization settled across council chambers and command decks alike that humans had not only predicted their moves but had shaped the battlefield itself, crafting conditions in which resistance would fail without catastrophic cost. And as humans continued to expand their reach with deliberate, measured actions, the galaxy slowly came to understand that this was not mere chance or luck but decades of preparation, strategic patience, and unparalleled ingenuity, revealing a species that had been underestimated for centuries, suddenly capable of dictating the terms of engagement, protecting the vulnerable, and reshaping the balance of power in a way that no empire could ignore. And by the time the first major engagement concluded with humans emerging dominant yet restrained, the once dismissive powers of the galaxy were forced to acknowledge the immutable truth that humanity's rise was neither accidental nor temporary, but the dawn of a new era in which the species long underestimated had finally chosen to act, and in doing so had irrevocably changed the rules of interstellar warfare, diplomacy, and survival. With the major empires now reeling from the precision and restraint of human operations, humanity shifted from reactive defense to controlled offensive campaigns, targeting only strategic objectives while maintaining alliances and preserving civilian populations. And as the Dravari Combine attempted to rebuild their fleets, human forces, guided by predictive AI and decades of tactical simulations, intercepted reinforcements before they could reach contested sectors, disabling engines, navigation systems, and weapons arrays without unnecessary destruction, while simultaneously deploying humanitarian aid and reconstruction teams to liberated colonies, creating an unshakable loyalty among species that had long suffered under imperial dominance. And as news of human capabilities spread to the farthest reaches of explored space, even previously neutral civilizations began aligning themselves with humanity, offering resources, knowledge, and strategic positions, further strengthening the human-led coalition, while the Galactic Council, paralyzed by indecision and mutual recrimination, watched helplessly as human fleets and diplomats reshaped the balance of power, demonstrating that influence could be exercised as effectively through protection and coordination as through direct force. And as a Kylarian conclave in Jakari Dominion attempted desperate maneuvers to regain control, they found themselves outmatched by humans who had not only anticipated every tactical variation but had prepared contingencies for each, using adaptive energy shields, hyper-advanced sensor networks, and gravitational manipulation to disable enemy warships with near-zero collateral damage, a combination of power and ethical restraint that confounded alien strategists, forcing them to recognize that humans were not merely strong or cunning, but possess a fundamentally different approach to warfare that blended intellect, patience, and moral calculation. And as human, lead fleets conducted synchronized strikes across multiple systems, simultaneously neutralizing command centers, disrupting supply lines, and securing civilian populations. The galaxy began to see the full scale of humanity's capabilities, from their mastery of advanced propulsion and weaponry to their ability to coordinate interstellar campaigns across light years in real time. While Earth remained a hub of technological and logistical innovation, with scientists, engineers, and strategists continuously refining tactics, communications, and defense systems, ensuring that human superiority remained both sustainable and adaptive. And amid the chaos of collapsing empires, internal dissent erupted among alien leadership, with factions questioning the wisdom of challenging a species that had so thoroughly anticipated their moves, while minor species, emboldened by human protection, seized opportunities to assert autonomy, further destabilizing previously rigid hierarchies. And as humans pressed their advantage, using both diplomacy and selective force, it became clear that the galaxy's perception of human weakness had been catastrophically wrong, with each engagement revealing not only technological mastery but psychological insight, the ability to predict enemy thought processes, and an unwavering commitment to balance power with ethical consideration. And as the final stages of this campaign approached, humanity's position had shifted from underdog to unchallenged, orchestrator of interstellar affairs, their fleets, alliances, and technological superiority establishing a new paradigm in which former empires and minor civilizations alike were compelled to recognize that humans had chosen not only to act but to shape the future of the galaxy according to a vision that combined strength, restraint, and strategic genius, leaving no doubt that the age of dismissing humanity was over, that the consequences of underestimation were catastrophic, and that the species once ignored had now become the central force around which the fate of countless worlds would revolve. As the dust of the final engagement settled across contested sectors, humanity stood resolute at the center of a galaxy that had once dismissed them as insignificant, their fleets occupying strategic points, their allies secure under protective oversight, and their technological dominance undeniable, while the major empires, fractured and demoralized, scrambled to comprehend the scale of miscalculation that had brought them to this moment, for centuries of arrogance, assumptions of weakness, and ignorance of human ingenuity had culminated in a revelation that could not be undone, and as a galactic council convened in emergency session, representatives of the Dravari combined, the Jakari Dominion, the Calirian Conclave, and countless minor species found themselves forced to negotiate with humans on terms dictated entirely by a species they had once sought to ignore, conquer, or manipulate, while humans exercise a measured approach, demanding only stability, security for allied and oppressed species, and recognition of sovereignty across their protective networks, demonstrating a blend of power and restraint that reshaped interstellar diplomacy, and as human scientists, engineers, and strategists continue to expand the reach of their technology, deploying advanced propulsion systems, adaptive defenses, and energy-based communication networks, they simultaneously rebuilt infrastructure, assisted liberated worlds, and coordinated cultural and economic exchange programs that integrated formerly oppressed species into a new galactic framework, fostering loyalty, trust, and resilience. And as alien leaders came to terms with the magnitude of their failure, they realized that the humans they had underestimated were not simply warriors or tacticians, but visionaries capable of long-term planning, ethical decision-making, and strategic patience on a scale no other species had matched. And as humanity consolidated power without resorting to wanton destruction, the galaxies slowly recognized a paradigm shift. The age of dismissing humans was over, replaced by an era in which every action, every alliance, and every conflict will be measured against the knowledge that humans were patient, intelligent, and utterly unyielding when provoked, and in the silence that followed the last engagement, survivors of former empires acknowledged with awe and fear that humanity's rise was not temporary, not accidental, and not dependent on luck, but the result of centuries of preparation, a deep understanding of alien psychology, technological mastery, and an unwavering commitment to both strategic dominance and ethical restraint. And as humans looked outward from Earth and their orbital command stations, they saw a galaxy transformed, fractured powers forced to collaborate under the new balance of authority, countless liberated species thriving on protection and guidance, and the realization that humanity had not only survived the test of interstellar conflict, but had reshaped it entirely, proving that patience, ingenuity, and moral courage were just as powerful as weapons of mass destruction, and that a species once dismissed could, through foresight, skill, and restraint, rise to become the central axis around which the future of the galaxy would revolve, leaving an indelible mark on history, civilization, and the very understanding of what it meant to be human in a universe that had finally learned to fear, respect, and reckon with them.